use it. And then I will also put these slides in a PDF format, and then I'll upload these slides to you as well, so you've got some references and things like that to go with them. I think everybody should share. So, and then if you need anything and I can help you in a way, then you just let me know. All right, the thing that I am most passionate about is servant leadership with students. So we're going to quickly go through this part because this is about you modeling student leadership. But servant leadership practices in the classroom, practical ways to model servant leadership. Because remember, you have to do it before you can expect it of your students. There's 4 practical ways. Modeling it. What does that look like to model servant leadership? Now, in some cultures, the word servant has a negative connotation. So when I go to India and I teach educators in India, I adapt this because the moment you say servant, they work on a class system. And that is a very negative connotation. So I always want to frame this culturally, and that I'm not talking about being the least of these. I am talking about modeling servant leadership as Jesus did in Mark 10:45 when he said, I did not come to be served, but to serve and give my life as a sacrifice for many. So modeling it, what does it require of us? Humility, listening first, and serving before leading. So when you think of your classroom and you want to develop a leadership program in your classroom, which, by the way, on some of your tables, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but since I work for headquarters, ACSI headquarters, we are here to serve you. You are our schools, which means my job is to serve you. So on the table, there are a couple of different things, and they're mixed throughout, and then I have extra. But this is all the different student-facing programs that your students can be involved in, even from Canada. We can come and run them in Canada, okay? All of these programs help build student leaders. So take these, and if there's none on the table, let me know. But we show you how to do these things. So humility, listening first, serving before leading, building others up. Your classroom, once you are modeling it, it's the identity affirming feedback, encouraging your students, creating shared ownership within your classroom, and leading with truth and grace. So I want us to take a moment and learn a little bit from each other rather than just listening to me speak all the time. I'm going to show you one of the things that you will have access to, and it's called Servant Leadership Practices in the Classroom. Practical ways to lead like Jesus and empower your students to do the same. It works, okay? I promise you. So what does it look like to model servant leadership? This gives you examples of humility, listening first, and serving before leading. What does it look like to build others up? This gives you examples of what identity-affirming feedback looks like, what encouragement as a habit looks like. That is hard for me. I am not an encourager by nature. I'm not. I have to work really hard. Why? Because I'm too busy running in 50 different directions to stop and say, good job. That was great. Because good job and great isn't what moves the needle anyway. Identity-affirming feedback is very specific in nature, and that means you've got to actually be paying attention to the person. Calling out leadership in others. I can do that pretty well. And so can most of you in this class or in here today. Creating shared ownership and leading with grace and truth. So what I want you to do at your table is I want you to, and I'll scroll back down, and then I'm going to scroll up so that you can see these 2 different sections. But I want you to look at these, so creating shared ownership, or leading with truth and grace, or build others up, or model it. How can you do that in your classroom? Learning from one another is one of the most powerful things you can do in Christian education. We should never feel lonely. You are sitting at the table with brilliant colleagues, And if you're like, not at my table, then get up and move. It's okay. Nobody's going to judge you. It's all right. You just move. Just move. When people get up and move, it's going to be hilarious. Okay. So what I want you to do is with the people at your table, I want you to pick one. Model it, build others up, create shared ownership, lead with grace and truth. And I want you to talk about how that can actually be modeled in the classroom. Begin to get ideas from one another, okay? Take about 3 minutes. I know I'm not giving you long, but we got a lot to get through. So you got about 3 minutes, and then we'll share. Ready, set, go. And I'll scroll. I'll keep scrolling. All right, you got about 30 seconds to wrap it up. All right, let's wrap it up. Here's what we're looking for. We are looking for who's going to share with us how you either model it, build others up, create shared ownership, or lead with truth and grace. How do you do it? How have you done it? All right.
I don't know which area it fits in, but I started my class this year with this is going to be a love your neighbor classroom. So what does that look like? What does that sound like? We're all neighbors in this class. How did, we talked about who neighbors are and, all of that. And I mean, has it had an impact? I think so on some levels. Have all the kids gotten it? I don't know. They've heard it a lot.
That's perfect.
Right.
That's what they need. No, I love it because you're setting expectations whenever you do that. It's a love your neighbor environment. And when they fall short of it, and they will, you have something to pull them back to. Did you exemplify loving your neighbor in this moment? How could you have done that differently? You have that when you can draw them to a space of familiarity whenever they mess up, it re-emphasizes what you're trying to build in them. Okay, who else? That was good. All right.
So at our school, in middle school in particular, we have class jobs, but it's a little bit difficult to implement our class jobs because us teachers, we move around, and it's the students that stay in their classroom. So, but I think class jobs are really important because it gives them a sense of responsibility, and when you take care of something with your hands, then more so you want to take care of that space. And because us teachers were not there to be there to make sure everything is good, it's really their responsibility. And so I teach grades 7s and 6s, and at that time, they don't really want to do these class jobs, especially the grade 7s. And so you need to give them some sort of a push to say, okay, maybe then you get to finish classwork early to just go and do your class jobs and help to make sure that you take ownership of the space. And they respond pretty well to it, I would say. And then hopefully the people who are not doing them, then they're more aware and they won't cause as much mess.
No, I love that. And the beauty of that is it's not your home, it's theirs, because you move and it's their space. That's a really interesting way to do that. And then I also have to point out that your colleague behind you, that's not really your colleague, but when you said 6-7, guess what they did? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I saw it right there. See, it's everywhere. 6-7 is everywhere. I was just like, what is it? And if you don't know what 6-7 is, go to the table right back there. He will tell you, okay? All right, that was really good, really insightful, and I hope you learned something from one another, and I hope you continue to learn from one another. Now, transforming schools, transforming classrooms, what's the next thing that we need to have? We need to have engaged learning. If you, and maybe those of you that have been teaching for a really long time, when I'm working with some that are trying to break the habit of moving from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side, to not sound too cheesy, but I just did. In other words, how to make your classroom an engaged learning classroom. One of the things that I do when I'm working with teachers on this is I have them set timers. And if you've been talking for more than 10 minutes and you have not allowed your students moments to process and engage and give feedback, you're talking too long. Because it's hard for us as adults. I mean, in the middle of this session, this very long session, I went about 20 minutes and I know I did it. And you had no engagement time. And I know I did that. You hopefully can handle it better than your students. But if you're trying to move into the engaged learning space, I challenge you, turn on that timer, and when it goes off, you got to let your students have some processing time. But being an engaged learner, it really is about connecting the calling that we've talked about and moving their knowledge from their head down into their heart, because we're in Christian education, which means we want them to end their time with us, whether they're with us K-12 or they just come in at the end or in the middle or wherever, loving Jesus more than when we got them. That's what engaged learning is all about. There are powerful, powerful moments in your day because you get to be that difference-making educator. Now, the way to these students' hearts, this generation of students, I study them for a living. Like, I am a geek when it comes to that. You want to talk about this generation all day long, let's have conversation, we can do it. If I could nail down 3 things that you could do to be a difference-making educator after talking to thousands of students around this world, this is what they want. 3 habits of a difference-making educator come right down to this. Number 1, intentional praise. That goes beyond good job. Good job tells them, and I'm guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it, okay? So I'm not calling you out. If you're a good job person, I'm there with you, okay? But when not just good job, but calling out something that speaks and affirms who they are in Christ, how he has gifted and crafted and created them, because they are struggling with identity and not just the gender part. Yes, they're struggling with gender. We're getting better though. The trend is we're trending in a good, positive way with the gender confusion, but they still are struggling with identity, who they are in Christ. What am I supposed to be? I have no idea. Why did God make me this way? And I can't remember any details at all because I'm a creative and things are all mixed up in my mind. Why did God make me like this? Helping them understand with intentional praise. No, I see that potential in you. That's what they want. This type of praise identifies their identity and their purpose. The specific praise is what makes the difference between a student that stays stuck in an area and a student that moves into their giftedness and into their abilities, and they see those for what they are. And who called it out? An educator did. Thoughtful questions. These are the ones, and honestly, if you don't know how to ask a thoughtful question, when I say thoughtful question, I mean, like Jesus said, do you believe I can do this? Or why did you doubt? Like, those are thoughtful questions. Get AI to generate some thoughtful questions for you. Give it scenarios and say, I need some ideas on how to ask thought-provoking questions. When I say thoughtful, I don't mean like, oh, that was so thoughtful of you to remember my birthday. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying thoughtful, the questions that you're going to ask that's going to produce thought from your students. This is where AI can become your amazing friend. It's all about prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is your friend. How to do that, how to properly do that, that's what matters with AI. So thoughtful questions. And then courageous trust. Give students something real to lead. Remember, these are you. I'm asking you to give intentional praise. I'm asking you to ask thoughtful questions. And now I'm asking you to have courageous trust in your students. Here's what that looks like. If you want to develop student leaders, you have to actually let them lead. And knowing the difference between leadership and tasks is so vitally important. Because you see, tasks are things that you need to get done. I'm letting them lead because they get the snack cart ready every single week. And if they don't do that, the students would not have snacks. Oh, that's a task. It's responsibility, but that's a task. Leadership is if they wreck it, you're going to look bad. Leadership is if you don't break out in a little bit of a sweat when you put them in that leadership position, you're not doing it right. So in other words, yeah, let them go take a prospective family on a tour. Go ahead, do it. I hope you do. I know it's scary, isn't it? If you have a donor coming in and you're going to have donor conversations with your director of development or whoever does that for your school, fantastic. Get students in the room. Can they blow your $15 million donor? Yeah, they absolutely can. They also can clinch them in a way you never could. Give them leadership opportunities. And I will tell you, I get more pushback, and that's okay. I'm a big girl. I can handle it. More pushback from when I talk about this than anything about student leadership. Why? Because I'm telling you to trust them, and they're barely trustworthy. That's why. That's why people are like, you crazy. I might be, but I see what leadership responsibility does in the life of a student. And They will never learn and grow if we don't allow them opportunities to learn and grow. And that does mean sometimes we have to go behind them and clean up their mess. We want to stand in front of them and keep the mess from happening. They're not going to learn that way. Not this generation of students. They don't learn like that. I wish they did, because I'd like to be, we call them, we don't call them snowplow parents in Florida because it doesn't snow. We call them lawnmower parents in Florida, or road paver parents. They're the ones that want to make sure that the grass is perfectly, smooth and there's no bumps, so they're road pavement parent. Nobody wants their child to trip or fall or have to run up a hill, so we pave the way and we make it super smooth. They're not exercising their leadership muscles, therefore they're not growing. So if you want to develop servant leadership in your school, these are the 3 habits that you can implement to make a difference. And what does that do? It becomes part of that transformational learning. Transformational learning is when students connect that academic content, and I know I've said it once, but I'm going to say it again, to their identity, their purpose, and their calling, because this is how it aligns with God's design for discipleship in their everyday life. Deuteronomy 6:7, impress this on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. It's over and over and over again. Biblical truth again and again and again. God's model for shaping hearts isn't limited to that formal instruction. It usually doesn't happen during formal instruction. It's woven into the rhythms of that everyday life. When you're in the hallway, when you're sitting in the middle of them in a basketball game, and you hear that their dad just lost his job, and you're like, oh, that's why you've been misbehaving in class. You don't turn around and say anything in the moment. You're just like, oh, that's why you're acting like you are right now. And now you know something, and now you are better equipped to pour into that student's life. That's the beauty of proximity. That's when transformational learning takes place. And that's when we begin to move from the head, what am I learning, to the heart. And these are great questions. When you create lesson plans, again, if you want transforming schools, transforming lives, creating your lesson plans, ask yourself this question. Are you clearly showing what it is that you want your students to learn? But then, Gen Alpha especially, they want to know, why does this matter for who I am? This is different from what you and I, if you're in my age bracket, many of you are younger than me, we wanted to know, well, I'm never going to use geometry in my life, in my career, because I'm going to do this. So why do I need to know if a triangle is acute or obtuse? Why do I need to know that? That's not this generation. This generation, it says, why does this matter for who I am? It's a whole different question now. And then hands, how can I live this out in the world? See, Gen X, my generation, we were going to change the world and we did nothing. Sorry if you're a Gen Xer, I don't mean to insult you. I did nothing. There we go. I did nothing. Okay. Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they want to change the world, and they are. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But they will not, this generation will not sit passively by. What they leave in their wake, that's where we come in. That's where we help pave that way. So making sure that hands are head, heart, hands. So let me give you a real life example. In literature class, students read a novel about injustice. Instead of stopping at the theme analysis, the teacher maybe asks this: what does this story reflect? How does this story reflect what we value about justice and mercy? Now you're asking them what they value. And you're asking them to frame it within justice and mercy. You just changed your engagement level of your students. They are in it now. They're in your, they don't care about theme analysis until you do something like that. What kind of person do you want to be in situations where others are mistreated? Oh, they're all in it now because you know they have an opinion all day long. So you're taking your subject matter and you're making it applicable in their lives. And then again, if you've talked for longer than 10 minutes and you haven't asked them a thought-provoking question and allowed them to process, you've lost them. Their mind, circus music is going on right up here in their mind, or they're chanting 6-7 in their brain or whatever else is going to come. Help us. I still don't understand the 6-7. So if somebody can explain it to me, that'd be great. I have no idea. Suddenly, your study, whatever it is you're studying, it's not just a book, it's about identity, it's about calling, and it moves your students from comprehension to conviction. That's when learning is transformational. It's amazing. It's amazing. When you see this come in to life in your classroom, it's awesome. All right, here's what I want you to do. Again, you're going to learn from each other. I want you to think about a lesson, maybe that you've recently done, and if you're in school leadership, then think about a situation. Maybe it's not a lesson, but what did your students learn? How did it shape their thinking or values? And how could it influence their action or direction? Now, this is hefty. What I'm asking you to do right now is to analyze something that you've done and self-reflect and think, did you work your students in a lesson through moving from head, moving into heart, shaping their thinking, and then does it actually influence them to any kind of action? And if you don't have a lesson example for that, what would one possibly look like? Okay, so if you've done that and you can share that at your table, great. If you haven't, now it should make a little bit more sense in your mind. Think about what you could do. Ready, set, go. 3 minutes.
So sorry, we have to get back by 4.
Okay.
We didn't drive ourselves.
Yeah,
So
you go.
please excuse us.
Yeah, you're fine. Yep, you go.
See you tomorrow.
Yep, see you tomorrow. All right, let's come back. We'll share this, then we're going to land the plane with student leadership, and then we will be finished until our gala for this evening. All right, who's got a really good lesson? Or something, situation, scenario. There we go.
Okay, so for in history, my 5, 6, 7 class, we've been studying ancient Mesopotamia. I know. I love this grade. So ancient Mesopotamia, culture of Samaria, and the reason for that is because that's where Abraham was called from. We haven't gotten there yet. We were looking at the Epic of Gilgamesh and comparing the flood narrative with the flood narrative in Scripture. So that was pretty cool on its own. But then one of my students who's not raised in a Christian home, so he's just getting some of this year. And he says, so where did the animals come from that they sacrificed? I said, that's a great question. You know, Noah had seven sheep. And lambs seem to be the animal of Scripture for sacrifice. So, you know, went with Eden and the first sacrifice and the clothes, and then Cain and Abel, and then we come to Noah. And he goes, Jesus is called the Lamb of the world. And I said, you're right. And then I have an ADHD student over in the other corner, and she's like, I get it now. Because Jesus was sacrificed for us.
I mean, that is amazing. Huh. You just gave me goosebumps. That's phenomenal. That is transforming schools. That is transforming lives. That is engaged learning. That's what that looks like. Who else? Anybody else? Y'all are like, no, because I'm not going to try and top that. So that's fine. We'll move on. No problem. All right. Let's land our time together. We've got just about 20 minutes left to talk about the thing that I am the most passionate about. I save it for last because if not, I'll talk about it the entire time. But student leadership development. You know, leadership is not defined by a position, but by personal influence, character, and action. You can give yourself all the titles you want and call yourself a leader. If nobody is following you, you are just taking a walk. So it is super important to understand what leadership means. Educators can nurture these qualities which lead to greater ownership, engagement, and purpose in learning. Student leadership, if done right, will be a key component of academic growth, of spiritual growth, of cultural impact, of character formation, again and again and again and again. And if you don't know how to develop leadership at your school, we have something at ACSI called Student Leadership Institute, where we train educators how to implement a sustainable leadership culture on their campus. It is a framework that works within any school, no matter what type of school that you are. But if you put student leadership at the forefront, the landscape of your school, the struggles that you have will be changed because of student leadership. I promise you, you can mark my words, it's not about having authority, it's about taking responsibility. That's the difference in the lives of your students. They move from, I want to be in charge, to, yeah, that was on me. I dropped the ball with that. It won't happen again because I'm gonna put some things in place, some accountability partners in place, and I'm not gonna let you down, and I'm gonna hold that responsibility, and you can depend on me now. Like that is what changes schools, that type of leadership. So influence, initiative, and integrity. So leadership isn't about just having authority. It's about helping students to navigate these three things. So think about if leadership is the ability to positively impact others, then your students naturally are going to have influence with their peers, their teams, their parents. They will actually even change some things about you. It's pretty cool. If you model the posture of, I can learn from you as your student, just like they can learn from us as their teacher, it will change dramatically the impact. Initiative. Student leaders, you will not have to prod your students to do things anymore. It will naturally happen. It is, when we implemented student leadership, we made it a priority at our school. I mean, the transformation was unbelievable. I never had to ask anybody to pick up the trash in the bleachers after a home game. Nope. The student leaders of the school, they would just start doing it. And then the cool thing is, all of a sudden parents are like, oh my gosh, the students are picking up trash and we're just standing over here. I guess we should too. And then the other students, and then next thing you know, the bleachers filled with people. Why? Because 4, 5, 6, 7 took the initiative to do that. They didn't have to be asked. They step up and they see a need and they do a need. I have a story. It's one of my one of the stories that changed my view on the impact of a student's ability to influence and initiate. At the school that I was the principal of, it was way back when vapes first came out. And I know they're still a thing. I know schools struggle with them. Many of your schools probably do. Schools in the States still struggle with them. But we had a vaping epidemic, and it turned so bad that, and I was trying so hard to get rid of it. I mean, I had policies written, I leveraged relational equity, I tried to rally the parents, I did education. I'm like, you're gonna die of cancer and a gruesome death. I mean, I tried everything to get them to stop. And one of my students, I did not have a student leadership program yet. One of my students came up to me. His name was SAS, not SASS, but those were his abbreviations. His real name is Stanley Allen Stouter II. So we called him SAS. And he was a very influential student. And I had a good relationship with him, as I did most of my students. And he knew that, you know, we had this vaping epidemic. And they got to the point where they were taunting me. Like, I knew they would. Like, I would come out of my office and there would be a vape on the ground. I'm like, oh. And so he came into my office and he sat down, and I had an open door policy. You can come in anytime. You can cry, scream, yell, whatever you need to do. I'm going to ask you if you're done in a minute. You know, you can't ever be disrespectful ever to myself or my staff. But those were my rules, and beyond that, you can just come in and vent all you need to. So he came and he sat down, and he started out like this. Mrs. Pigott, it's cute how hard you're trying. I know, right? I was like, what'd you say to me? Like, I mean, I sat up a little straighter in my chair, I'll tell you that right now. He's like, no, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. No. He's like, I'm just trying to affirm that I see you trying. And I'm like, okay, I'll try to calm myself down a little bit here, because you riled me up a little bit. But this is what he said. He said, but here's the problem. You're trying to do something that you can't do, but I can. He said, but I can't do what you can. And he said, I don't know how to lead. He said, so if you'll make a deal with me, these are his exact words. He said, if you'll teach me how to lead, I'll solve your vaping epidemic. I was like, deal? Are you kidding me? So we started a leadership development program. I trained a group of seven. 3 weeks into the training, we held it during lunch, which is not the best idea, and I train schools on how to not do it during lunch. I can solve it all. I can help you with your schedule, but that's what we had. That's what we did. 3 weeks in, he's like, all right, we're ready. And I'm like, for what? He said, we're going to solve this vaping epidemic. And I'm like, how? He's like, I'm not telling you. And I'm like, okay. I said, you can't do anything. And he's like, just please, you've already trained us, 2 weeks later, the vapes were gone. Now, I will say this. I know for a fact he did go in students' bags, and he did pull out the vapes, and he did crush them in front of them, and he did tell them that you're going to die if you keep doing it. Like, he did things that I can't do, and I know he did. Nobody ever turned him in, okay? So that was really kind of cool, and I didn't have to deal with any irate parents. Why? Because who's going to go home and tell their parent that his classmate pulled out their vape and crushed it on the floor, So, but at the end of all of this, because he had the ability to influence others in a way that I couldn't, he did help solve that vaping epidemic. Now, he was aggressive with some things and whatever, but did he do it exactly the way I wanted him to do? No, but he solved it. There was no vapes on the floor when I came into my office, and I was really happy about that. But then what we started to see was students realizing, wait a minute, he knew how to influence and make a change, and we actually fell in line with that. How did he do that? And they started asking, and he's like, leadership. And next thing you know, we went from 7 to 20. And then from 20 to 50. And then from 50 to, I don't even know what I'm going to do now, because 2/3 of my high school were now involved in what we called a Student Leadership Institute. Why? Because one young man took the initiative, and he said, I can do this. Had nothing to do with me, had everything to do with him. But then I let him, and that was the scariest part. Remember when I talked about that? Part of that's scary. Letting him, because yeah, he could have done something and ticked somebody off, and then I would have to suspend him because he did something wrong. You know, a million things could have happened. But influence, initiative, integrity, that will move the needle in your school. Because leadership, as we saw with SAS, drove ownership. He took ownership. I would hear him going down, not on my campus. I mean, he was just like, and he was a bigger guy, but he was lovable. And so it never was a bullying situation. I never would have let that happen, at least not knowingly. But he's like, no, this is our school. We bleed blue and gold here. We are the SFCA kings, with an apostrophe, which means we belong to the king, not the kings. Okay, I always have to describe that. But he owned that. And then there was the battle cry, and they all began to own it. And then, of course, they were very engaged. It was part of their school, again, bleeding blue and gold. And the coolest part is they started to see their school as more than just a place to get grades and learn knowledge. It was their home. It was their family. It was part of what shaped them as a young man and as a young woman, because leadership isn't about being in charge. And this is so important. It's about taking charge of how you treat people. That's going to change your school. Sometimes we go after leadership because we want the big fancy title. We want the corner office. All I got to say is the fancier your title gets, the heavier responsibilities get. So go ahead, grab the fancy titles. Comes with a lot of weight. It's about taking charge of how you treat people, how you solve problems. Our motto was this: we serve people and we solve problems. That's what we do. That was our battle cry. And when we did student leadership, because it was serving people, solving problems all day long, and then how you carry yourself, because everybody has the potential to lead. So at the end, a kingdom classroom. Transforming lives, transforming schools. This is what your world now will look like as you lean in and you begin to implement these things. They're not just places where content is taught. They're spaces where you now are forming character. It's where leadership is cultivated and where truth is lived out. Because you, as the educator, you have the opportunity to lead like Jesus through intentional relationships, we talked about that, servant leadership, and a commitment to shaping both the hearts and the minds of students. Now, we're not going to do this engagement part for time purposes, but I do want you to think about this. And I've got the document, again, that I'll share with you. But as we close our time today and get ready for the gala and the huge day of lots of learning tomorrow, in my classroom, I will create space for. In my hallways, in my school building, on the athletic field, whatever role you have in your school. Because what we talked about today isn't just for the classroom teacher. This has to take place at the administrative level as well. In my classroom, in my school, I will create space for. So what kind of environment will you intentionally build to help students lead, grow, and live out their purpose? That's the ultimate question. That's what I want you to wrestle with. Like, wrestle with this. Lean into this. If you don't know how to do it, get with your colleagues, over late night dessert tonight, or I guess there's going to be tons of dessert here, but sticky toffee pudding is my favorite dessert. Like when I'm traveling either in Europe or in Canada, I always try to find sticky toffee pudding. So go find some sticky toffee pudding tonight. And has anybody you did not respond like I thought you were, but I thought you'd be like, yes, sticky toffee pudding. No. Okay, great. Must be a me thing, I guess. But grapple with this. And then tomorrow, as you go through your sessions and you hear more from leaders, how can you implement real change when you go back to your school? But understanding it all begins with how you engage with your students. It's not how fancy your lesson is. It's all about how you engage with these students that are in front of you. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for this incredible day that started this morning, and what was learned in that session, and how to care for ourselves and to assure that we are approaching our work from a place of well-being. But then this afternoon, how to then create classrooms and school environments that will provide a space for the well-being of our students. So give us wisdom as we lean into this, as we strive to find ways to serve these students in a way that will impact and change their lives. Thank you for every educator in this room. Thank you for their saying yes to Christian education, their willingness to pour into the lives of students in such a sacrificial manner. I pray that you will multiply their efforts, that you will guard their hearts, guard their minds, keep them strong and steadfast in this race, and protect them, protect their families, and I pray that as they step back into their classrooms, their hallways, their offices, Lord, that you would give them the wisdom to have the impact in these students' lives that will change this landscape for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen, amen.
So I know that for some of you, this is different sitting on your bum for so long, right? I heard a couple of people saying, this is a little longer, this is what our students feel. So thank you so much. Didn't she do a good job today? Do you have some good takeaways? Well, we want to thank you for being part of us and helping us grow forward. We met we did meet in Florida, but we didn't meet in Florida because we were going to meet in Florida, but we didn't. But we saw each other in Florida. Yes. That's right, right? And then at the same time, we went out for supper. That's right. That's right. And I was allergic to fish. And you were allergic to fish. Like, why are we? That's what I thought so too. So anyway, it's good to have a resource like this. I really appreciate it. We wanted to give you one of our Growing Forward packages. There's a book by somebody not too famous at all. But anyway, it's for you to grow forward because you helped us grow forward. So this concludes our first part. So tomorrow is totally different, just to let you know. So today was kind of like a pre-conference. We had some sessions, sit back, more relaxed. We had some leader stuff. We did big chunks, wanted to experiment with that. So we appreciate your feedback, no wrong feedback.